Hi, I'm Jeremy, and you're listening to Verse by Verse. God's law was a crushing, oppressive burden that Jesus Christ died to dig us out from underneath. At least, that's how a lot of modern-day churches tell the story, which is surprising because that's not how the Bible tells the story. Jesus warned that those who called themselves his followers but failed to obey God's commandments would have no place in his kingdom. Matthew 7 verse 23 says, "And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness." Strong words coming from someone who was about to die on the cross so that none of us would ever have to worry about God's law ever again. Even the Apostle Paul, who recognized that law-keeping can't save us, and that our only hope to be pure before God is through faith in the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, wrote to the Romans, "Do we then nullify the law through faith? Absolutely not. Instead, we uphold the law." That's Romans 3:31 in the Net Bible. He later reaffirmed in Romans 7 verse 12, "Therefore the law is holy, and the commandment holy and just and good." Again, if God's law was some oppressive weight that we needed to be rescued from, why talk about it that way? Paul says it's holy and just and good. But for today's verse, I want to turn the clock back even further, back to roughly 1,000 years before Jesus Christ lived and died to pay the penalty for our sins, all the way back to Psalm 119. Psalm 119 is the longest chapter in the book of Psalms, and the longest chapter in the entire Bible for that matter, with 22 stanzas of 8 lines each. Guess what the author of Psalm 119 spent 22 stanzas talking about? God's law. I want to look at just one of those verses in one of those stanzas. Psalm 119, verse 35. "Make me walk in the path of your commandments, for I delight in it." Not, "I put up with." Not, "because I have no other choice." Not, "I'll trudge through it because you said I have to." Not, "I begrudgingly acknowledge the value of it even though I wish it didn't exist." The psalmist said, "I delight in it." He looked at the law of God and saw something precious beyond words, even though he did pour a lot of words into trying to express how he felt about it. He recognized that God's commandments laid out a path that gave his life meaning and direction, and he treasured it. The only trouble with God's law was never the law itself. It was us. The commandment is holy and just and good, but humans aren't. We, kind of screw up. A lot. And the law becomes a yardstick of how inadequate we are. It shows us where we fall short and how often we fall short, and it reminds us that there's nothing we can do to undo our own falling shortnesses. That's where the sacrifice of Christ comes in. Not to undo the law, not to free us from the obligation of keeping it, but to pay the penalty for our own failures, to make us clean in God's sight. We should be grateful for that. I'm grateful for that. I need that. And so do you. But forgiveness doesn't make the road disappear. The commandments of God still outline the path that each and every Christian ought to be focused on walking, and not begrudgingly, but with joy that we've been shown a way of life that works, one filled with blessings that takes us toward a kingdom where those who practice lawlessness will be barred from entry. Make me walk in the path of your commandments, for I delight in it.
Verse by Verse is a Life, Hope, and Truth podcast. Check out the show notes to find more free content, like videos, articles, and booklets in our Learning Center.